My name is Jake, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna do a Review My Pie video where I review subscriber portfolios. This is one of my favorite series on the channel. I've been doing this, I think, for almost 4 or 5 years now. I absolutely love it. It's where, you can submit your portfolio to me via email. There's an email in the description below. You can, kind of add a little bit of context, who you are, your background, your age, your investment goals. Last week, I was gonna make a Review My Pie video, but instead, I had the opportunity to speak with M1's founder and CEO, Brian Barnes. But yeah, if you didn't see that video, it was a really great experience. I also had the opportunity to write an article on their website. I will leave a link to the article in the description of this video. They asked me to share my thoughts on reaching financial independence and leveraging M1. And I shared a little bit about my story. And so if you haven't read that, it's pretty cool. It's my own words. I didn't get paid to do it. So it was all, in my opinion, because I didn't get paid, the reason why I'm saying that is I got to be more authentic with it and I had more flexibility. And really quick, before we dive into the Review My Pie video here, if you are using M1, you'll notice that there's a couple of different things here. So on the dashboard here, you'll have the option now to update where your dividends go. You can have them go directly into your cash account. You can reinvest them directly back into the stock that you have or that you own, or you can have it go to your high yield, cash account. So it's pretty cool. I like that they offer this as a new drip feature. What you can also do is you can go into the holding section if you use M1. This is only on the browser for now. And you can see that they implemented a dividend tracker. So I know a lot of you pay for a separate service. I know there's a lot of other websites out there that charge a monthly fee. If you use M1, you get this now for free, and it's pretty cool. You can track your monthly income. You can slice it and dice it. You can see how was your income last year? How is your income year to date? And you can see what your income will look like over the next 12 months. And so you better believe it, I'm going to be using this. I love it. I track my income in a spreadsheet to just kind of see my progress. It's cool to visualize it and see it. What you'll notice here in the dark blue is what has been paid. You can see what's pending and what is estimated, right? So this is estimated, it has not yet been confirmed, right? And so it's kind of cool. I like using it. In today's Review My Pie, we're going to take a look at a subscriber question, and then I'm going to take a look at 3 portfolios. The first question is from someone in their 30s. They sent me an email. They said that they're in their 30s. The first portfolio is from a 29-year-old here in the US. The second portfolio is from a 28-year-old from Germany. And then the third, a 55-year-old from here in the United States. And as always, everybody, the timestamps will be in the description below, as well as the portfolio links will be in the description below. And as always, everybody, I'm not a financial advisor. Please don't take what I'm saying as financial advice. It's just merely for your entertainment. And as always, I don't pre-review the portfolios before recording these videos. So I'm reviewing them live for the very first time as I'm recording the video. And if you've been following my channel for a while now, when I review these portfolios, I do kind of skew a little bit more on the conservative side. I talk a lot about having a core portfolio of dividend ETFs like SHD and DGRO. I found by having a core portfolio of ETFs, it makes it easier and a lot less stressful when investing in the stock market. When you invest only in individual stocks, you can easily find yourself in a stressful situation, and it could look a little like this.
Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man.
You're a monster.
I'm not the monster here. You are. You and the rest of that fairy tale trash poisoning my perfect world. Now tell me, where are the others?
Fuck to it.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, back on topic here. Oh my gosh. The first question here is from Dan. I got this email and I thought it was really good. I wanted to share it with all of you and kind of share my thoughts and respond to Dan here. So Dan writes here, "Hi Jake, thanks for sharing great content on your channel. I'm a recent subscriber, married, both of us working in our early 30s, combined post-tax income of 100K, net worth of 650K, mostly in real estate. No kids yet, but soon, living in Texas, high cost of living city, okay? Reaching out to see what your thoughts are on our situation and the steps we want to take in the next year." Okay, so you're in a high cost of living area. You're probably in one of the major cities, Dallas, Houston, Austin, maybe San Antonio. Okay, so we would like to leave our jobs, relocate to a lower cost of living on $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month. You're going to have to really go in the boonies to make it on $3,000 a month. Okay, okay, so you're thinking outside of the US, like South America or Europe, utilizing geo arbitrage while also living off the dividends from a mix of covered call ETFs while we focus on family. Okay, I really like the idea. We currently have 2 mortgages, one primary and one rental, that we could sell one or both and pour it into the brokerage, which would bring a total brokerage value to about $550,000. So you got a couple of questions. The first question is, could this account alone suffice for our living if invested into covered call ETFs at maybe an 11% yield? What covered call ETFs could bring about this yield? I don't have M1, but was thinking of creating a pie including JETB, QLD, XYLD, SHD, and DGRO. The remaining 5% in single stocks like Costco, Walmart, Coca-Cola, and Apple. What would be a healthy withdrawal rate? We are thinking of a 7 to 8%, and the remainder 3% would reinvest back into the portfolio, I'm assuming. Any dangers we should keep in mind or look to avoid with this strategy? If you need any clarification questions, let me know. Thanks again for your content. I look forward to watching your videos each week, and indeed, the journey should be enjoyable. So, Dan, I think, first off, this is great that you're thinking about, approaching life in maybe a different way, right? You grew up here in the United States. You saw your parents probably work until they were in their mid-60s. You probably have realized you want to live a different life. And I think a lot of millennials, Gen Zers, are looking at the traditional American dream and questioning, is this what I really want? And I am a huge believer that it's okay to be different, and it's okay to carve your own path in life, right? Generations ago left their homes and families for a better life, in many cases to come to the United States to build something new. And now, ironically, a lot of people are looking to leave the United States for better or for worse, right? So everyone's in a different situation. I love that you're thinking outside of the box here and considering a different life. When it comes to your strategy here, $3,000 a month, you're going to be very limited to what you're going to be able to do. And, your expenses are going to depend on your housing, your healthcare, depending on where you're at, right? Healthcare in South America and Europe, in many cases, is very affordable compared to the United States. So living on $3K in the United States, doesn't sound like a fun retirement. But outside of the US, the only challenge that I think you're going to have here is if you're planning on going with with only $3K a month, it's going to be difficult to relocate back to the United States if you were to choose to without getting a new job. So kind of understand that you're kind of pigeonholing yourself when you're making a decision to leave the US. It's going to be hard to come back and have the same standard of living. You're probably going to have to get another job if you were to ever come back. So that's really, really important to consider. Is this something that you just, like a lot of people, they want to try out the van life. They do go and live down by the river in a van for, a year, and then they hate it and they want to go back to their old lives. So remember that the grass is not always greener on the other side. Having lived in Europe for almost 10 years, there's a lot of things that I loved about Europe, a lot of things that I disliked. So it's important to understand that you may want to dip your toes in it instead of going all or nothing. I don't know. Just be aware that you may have a change of heart and want to come back, and that's going to be very difficult to do. But maybe not. You're still young, so who knows? Could this account work with just covered calls? So I would, given that you're looking to live off the income now, a covered call ETF could be a great option. I personally like JEPI and JEPQ. I stay away from the Global X covered calls. They sell at the money. There's limited upside potential. In my opinion, I would completely avoid the Global X ones. That's just my personal opinion. The way that the funds are structured. Okay, with JEPI you have upside potential, and with JEPQ as well. And I would not calculate with an 11% yield. I would calculate conservatively more with an 8 or 8.5% yield. The second question I kind of answered in the first one, what covered call ETFs could bring about this yield? What I would look at is if you're looking to live off the income now or very soon, having a mixture of yield and dividend growth is going to be important because inflation is a thing. And if you watched my last video from Thursday, I actually reviewed an article that talks about this. But combining JEPI or JEPQ with SHD or VYM and a small percentage in DGRO, I think will cover a lot of your bases. when it comes to Costco, Walmart, Coca-Cola, and Apple, these are lower dividend yields. And so it really just becomes a question of math. If you were to, the weighted average yield of your portfolio, is Costco going to add to your yield? Me personally, I would not invest into Costco for the yield with your time horizon, unless that's kind of like your backup plan for in 20 years, like kind of setting it at the side. So kind of look at it that perspective, but you want to make sure that you don't heavily overweight just in covered calls ETFs, because you're young and you want that income to grow as inflation grows and as things become more expensive. As you have more expenses in life, right? You said you don't have kids yet, but soon. So your expenses are expected to grow as you grow your family. The third question here, what would be a healthy withdrawal rate? This is more so if you're liquidating your shares. The way that I would look at it is, I guess you're asking, would you reinvest part of the dividends? I mean, you could do that. In my opinion, I would have a strategy for your tax advantaged accounts and your taxable account, right? It's like, do you have a Roth IRA? Do you have a 401k? You still want to make sure that you're preparing for your future. You don't want to just have this, you don't want to just think about the immediate future right now. You want to also plan, well, what are you going to do when you're 60, right? Are you going to have a little nest egg when you're 60? Are you relying on Social Security? Are you going to be eligible for Social Security? Have you worked 10 years in the United States and paid into the system? All of those things, you want to make sure that you're looking at this from every angle, because it's easy to kind of overlook some things, especially when you're making such a big step and going to be leaving your home country and going on this journey, I guess you could say. So the withdrawal rate, I guess it really just depends on what you're invested in and what your expenses are. Let's say you have $550,000, times that by, let's say you had an 7.5, 7.5% average yield, portfolio yield. Well, you're going to have $41,000. Divide that by 12, you're going to have about $3,400 a month. So you're barely going to reach that 3K. And so that 3,400 is not going to grow very much. It might grow by like 3%, right? Or 4%. And so, times that by 12 really quick. And let's say, for example, that's your first year. Well, you times that by 1.03, it went from 41,250 to 42,500, right? So having a strategy like this, it's very, very narrow-sighted, very short-sighted. And so you want to make sure that you don't do yourself a disservice in future years, because your purchasing power will likely go down. Okay. And in some countries, just really quick, some countries have higher inflation than others, right? So you see in like Turkey, I think I saw an article that Turkey had 70% inflation year over year, right? So something to definitely be aware of. And then the fourth thing that you ask here, I kind of trickled this in with everything that I'm saying, some of the dangers or things to look out for. Look out for your healthcare, understand the expenses there, understand that you may want to come back to the United States in 5 or 10 years, and you have to be, accept the fact that you may need to get a job when you come back. You very likely will have to get a job when you come back. It's just kind of how it is. And I would put together a weighted portfolio where you have the option where your portfolio is still going to grow, and you're going to get that growth from SHD. And I would consider something like a VYM, like, I don't know, like you could go, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. You could do like 30% JEPQ, 30% JEPI. No, I actually wouldn't even do that much. I wouldn't do more than 50% into covered call ETFs personally. But if you did that, your overall yield is going to go down. Okay. And so it's a give and take. You might have, instead of 3,400 a month, you might only have 2,700, but that yield is going to grow more year over year. And so maybe there's a way that you could work part-time while you're over there or wherever you go. But that's what you want to understand is you're very young. Your expenses are only going to increase in the foreseeable future. And you want to make sure that you have some cushion and that you are, because you don't want to live a life in poverty. living a life in poverty in the US is no fun. Living a life of poverty in South America or in Europe is no fun, right? So you want to make sure that you do it where you don't have to pinch pennies. That's just my what I would highly recommend. But yeah, I think it sounds really exciting. There's a lot of other great places in the world, South America, Europe, all over Asia. There's a lot of ways of doing this. Just kind of think about the unthinkable, because, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, right? Murphy's Law. So, but yeah, thank you so much for sending over the question. I hope that gives you a few things to think about, and I hope that it helps you. Thanks, Dan. All right, let's take a look at the first portfolio here from Derek. He writes, "Hi Jake, my name is Derek. I'm 29 years old and with a 20 to 25 year time horizon." If you're new to the channel, what he means by time horizon is when he plans on living off of his portfolio. So if he's 30 years old, for example, he's going to look to live off his portfolio at the age of 50 or 55. Okay, so maybe you've heard me say time horizon a million times, but you don't really know what I mean by that. It's when you plan on living off of your portfolio and no longer reinvesting the dividends and no longer contributing to your portfolio. I started investing 3 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic. I had never invested in anything before that point, but started researching, studying heavily into all different types of investing and trading styles. Dividend investing really appealed to me due to the passive nature of the approach, so that I can still focus on my day-to-day. Here's my dividend portfolio. Appreciate your time and feedback. Derek, thank you so much for reaching out. I think, a 20 to 25 year time horizon gives you a lot of options. Dividend investing is a great approach. It's something that I personally decided to go with when comparing, versus the 4% rule, selling my shares. Dividend investing has pros and cons, right? You're going to have potentially lower total returns over an extended period of time if you allocate to the wrong investments, right? Or if you allocate more to high yielders that are maybe growing slower than the overall index. So there's definitely some pros and cons, but yeah, let's take a look at your portfolio. All right, so in your portfolio, it looks like you have 34 holdings. You have a 3% dividend yield and a very low expense ratio of 0.02%. Very, very low expense ratio. You have a good, healthy dividend with a 20-year time horizon. I actually kind of like the 3%. I think anywhere from 2.5% to 3.5% dividend yield is kind of that sweet spot for a 20-year time horizon. And the reason why this is important is because generally stocks and ETFs that are yielding around that 3%, you're still going to get that 7 to 10% dividend growth year over year on average, right? And so that's why when I look at this, I like to see that. And so what do you have in here? So you got dividend ETFs, healthcare, consumers, utilities, financials. Okay, so you got the majority into ETFs. Let's see what you got in ETFs here. And you got 4 holdings, 2.7. All right, so you got VYM, VIG, DGRO, and SCHD. All 4 great ETFs, okay? I'm trying to think about your time horizon. You got 50% in more dividend growth, and you got 50% in more of a higher dividend yield. Though SCHD is kind of a unicorn. I mean, it's like there's a reason why everybody loves SCHD, because it is kind of a unicorn. It has great dividend growth and a higher than average dividend yield. So all in all, you got 50% skewed to growth and 50% dividend growth and 50% skewed towards a higher dividend yield. I think that's fine. In my opinion, what you probably could do, you could probably skew more for the first couple of years into VIG and DGRO, and then kind of like a target date fund, once a year you could kind of reevaluate, and every couple of years you could slowly, as your dollar cost averaging, slowly decrease the dividend growth and slowly increase the higher dividend yield, right? And so that's personally what I would do. It's still very low maintenance, still very passive. It's not something that you do every couple of months, but every couple of years. Okay, something to definitely consider. And that's, if you have a long-term time horizon, I would probably actually recommend it. You would be better off doing that way, but it's not going to necessarily move the needle too crazily. We're not talking about such a big deal, because you still have the 50-50 split. So I think you're still in a good spot. It's a little bit nitpicky, but if you're watching this and you're kind of an optimizer and you want to, engineer this, that's something that you can consider looking at this as like kind of a target date fund. All right, let's take a look at the first slice here with healthcare. What do you got in healthcare? AbbVie, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, equally weighted. Okay. Yeah, I like that. What percentage do you have in healthcare? Ooh, I do not like that. Do not like that at all. So you got 0.18, 0.35. That means you got 6% in AbbVie, Pfizer. Wait, did you have Pfizer in there? Did I read that right? Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, you got over 6% in individual stocks. I would reduce this down to like maybe 10% or 12% and then put the remaining into the dividend ETF section. I think you could bump this up, the dividend ETF, especially you said you want it to be passive. The more you have in dividend ETFs, the more passive it is. But that's just, obviously my opinion. You could always put it in some of these others, but yeah, I would definitely lower this. Consumer staples, what do you got in here? You got Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Okay. Pepsi and Coca-Cola, it's going to be right around 5%. It's a bit high, but I would lower this. I would lower this, put this at maybe like 7 or 6%. That would give you 3% into Coca-Cola and Pepsi. I think would be more reasonable for your time horizon. In terms of utilities, you got, some good ones in here. It's kind of a utility. It's actually an industrial, but you can look at it as a utility. Do some good utilities. I like the weighting. I would bump up waste management for sure. I would bump up waste management or put it in your industrial slice and bump that up. You got technology. What do you got in here? Okay, good. You got the big names in here. You even got the Intel. Okay. And you have a good weighting there. What do you have in energy? Why do you have 10% in energy? Okay, so this is the first thing. I would recommend lowering energy because, it comes down to, this is probably in a taxable account. You're going to have the tax drag from these two. Like, you don't need the dividend today, right? You really don't. And so that's why I would recommend, kind of looking at this as like a target date fund. You could lower this. If you absolutely wanted to have Chevron and Exxon, lower this to like 2%, right? Or 1% even. And then as you get closer to retirement, then you start bumping up energy. But for now, I do not like that. I think you're missing out. Like, you could skew much more into like waste management or some of these technology companies or Duke or something else. I would definitely lower energy. Okay, consumer, you got Lowe's, Disney, okay, Starbucks, okay, like Lowe's. Okay, you could bump, like for example, I would swap energy and consumer discretionary 100%. Because like I said, you don't need the dividend yield today. I mean, if you lowered energy, your yield would go down a good amount, and that's completely fine. In industrials, what do you got in here? You got Lockheed Martin, so some defensive stocks, 3M and Leggett & Platt. Oh, you poor soul. Oh, man. Yeah, so you sent me this email a little while ago. Yeah, I would, so me personally, when a company cuts its dividend, I cut it from my portfolio in almost every case. Me personally, I would cut 3M and Leggett & Platt. That's just my opinion, and I would move on. If you absolutely want to hold on to them, you can do so. But yeah, it's unfortunate to see that. It is what it is. Communications, what do you got in here? Verizon and Comcast. Okay, Verizon and Comcast, very, very different worlds, right? This is kind of like an energy stock. This is more of like a growth stock. I like that you have them equally weighted, I guess. Communications, it's only like 2%. Yeah, I mean, so here's what I want you to ask. Would you rather own 400 of some of the best dividend growth stocks in America, or would you rather own Verizon and Comcast? Okay, Comcast I believe is even in the other ETF. But like, what I want you to think about is, does it make more sense to own 5% of your portfolio in Exxon and 5% in Chevron, or would it make more sense to own 100 of the best, highest dividend paying companies in America, and that they are based off of an index that is market cap weighted based off the dividend, and you don't have to do anything. It's all passive. What would you rather own? A single stock, an energy stock, or 100 of the best, high dividend stocks in America. Something to kind of think about. That's why I talk about the simple path to wealth. That's why I would have 70 or 80% in this, and then the remaining trickled throughout this, okay? Because what's really going to move the needle in your retirement is, in my opinion, it's going to be these ETFs that are passively growing and that you aren't, like, for example, you're not going to have a disaster like this or this, 3M and Leggett and Platt, on the brink of bankruptcy, quite frankly, if you look at its stock price. I don't know if it's going to go bankrupt. I don't follow it that close, but it sure looks like it from the stock price. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have exposure to 100 of the best high dividend stocks in America? If you use that rationale, I hope that it clicks, and I hope that it makes sense and something to definitely consider. Financials, what do you got in here? You got a lot of financials, all really good companies. I'm not as familiar with SYF. All the others are really, really good. I like this slice. Like, if you're going to own individual stocks, there's a lot of really, really great companies in here. Insurance, JP Morgan. Yeah, really, this is a good slice. This one should definitely replace energy as an example. Okay, so all in all, I've shared my feedback, giving you some things to think about. You don't need the high dividend today. Would you rather own, I'm going to repeat myself, 5% of your portfolio in an energy stock? Or would you rather own 5% in 100 of the best high dividend companies in America? And when you think about it from that perspective, hopefully it helps you to rethink how to allocate your portfolio. And especially to use your own words to make it passive. I would encourage you and everyone out there who's watching, if you want a passive portfolio, take a look at my videos that I've shared on the core and satellite approach. 70 to 80% in your core ETFs, and then your satellite positions. Hey, if you want to have a little bit more growth, or you want to have maybe a higher yield, or maybe, this is maybe your fun money. I guess it's more of an emotional buy, the satellites. You're kind of reaching. It's also to help balance out your overall goals, right? And so that's what I would take a look at. But yeah, Derek, I hope that the video was helpful. I hope that gave you some things to think about. Thank you so much for sending over your portfolio. All right, the next portfolio is from Arne. He writes, Dear Jake, my name is Arne. I'm 28 years old and live in northern Germany. I'm investing in stocks since 2016, and since I inherited a proper sum of money this year and watched videos, which is how I came across your channel. Well, hey man, appreciate it. My goal is to reach 50,000 euros in passive income per year before tax through this stock portfolio by the age of 50. So you got a little less than 25 years. Okay, I would love to use M1 Finance for this, but in the German legislation prevents that. So I invest it manually whenever a stock drops and I have the necessary cash. The money I have at hand for this is around 600 euros per month. Attached to this email, you will find a spreadsheet of my current portfolio, and I would love to hear your opinion on this on the Review My Pie series. All the best to you and your family. Yours sincerely, Arne from Hamburg. Well, hey man, I've been to Hamburg many, many times. I worked up in Hamburg for a little while, and my wife is from Kiel. So I know Hamburg very well. It's a great place. All right, well, let's take a look at the portfolio here and let's see what you have. So I'm looking at the number of holdings. It looks like you have about 27 individual stocks. I don't see any ETFs. In Europe, I know that you guys don't have access to some of the ETFs that we do in the US. And so you're going to have to look at the European version. But, and I wish I had more information on that, but I would recommend Googling in German, or if you're somewhere else, Google in your native language, the topic, and you'll more likely get relevant information for you in your region. If you Google it in English, you're probably going to get a lot of American stuff or, British stuff. So I would recommend Googling it in your native language. Anyways, let's take a look at this. You got Broadcom, Amgen, Apple, American Tower. Okay. You got Visa, Microsoft, Prudential. So you got a good mix of different industries. Brookfield, AbbVie, Nova Scotia. Okay. Medical Property Trust. I'm sorry. You, like me, are unfortunately in the red on Medical Properties Trust. Okay, that's fun. Anyways, oh man, I salute you. I'm a bag holder as well. T. Rowe, Alliance, Caterpillar, Good, 3M. Oh, you poor soul. Okay, Nova, what is that? Nova Nordisk. Okay, TC Energy. TC Energy was on the video that I made on Thursday. Okay, cool. Unilever, Medifast, Total Energy, Innovation, Newmont, Altria. Okay, good. Rio Tinto, and you got Omega Healthcare. Okay, Omega's done good. Okay, and Altria's done okay. All right, so you're definitely skewed more towards higher income. All right, and you said that you have about a 20-year time horizon. What you want to do, and this goes for you or anyone watching, if you want to figure out and you want to look at this from the right perspective, what you want to do is you want to enter in, let me see if I can do this in the spreadsheet here. So dividend, let's see if I can spell dividend yield. Oh, you have dividend yield over here. Okay, let me see. I told you I didn't look at these portfolios before. Okay, so you got the dividend yield, and then what you want to do is you want to come over here and you want to do dividend CAGR. All right. And what you want to do is, let's see here. Let's do another one. Weighting. Okay. So this is what you want to do is you want to look at what percentage does Broadcom and Abgen and Apple, what percentage does it represent in your portfolio? And actually what I would recommend, let me take this gain out here. Weighting now and weighting target. Okay, so this is where you have now, and then what I would recommend is having a column here that says weighting target. And so this is what you have, and this is what you're working towards. And then what you do is when you're projecting and calculating for future returns, like this is how I did it. Okay, maybe a little bit old school, doing this a little manually, but what you do is you put in your target weighting, and you'll have your percentages, and this column will equal 100, obviously. Right? It'll equal 100%. And this will help you to kind of, keep things in check, right? That you don't have one stock at like 15% of your overall portfolio. Okay. And so ideally what you would have is a core portfolio of ETFs, right? And then you'd have all of these representing at maybe 1, 2, or 3, or 4, 5%. Okay. And then after that, you have the 100%, and then you have your dividend yield. Okay. What I like to do, if you're dollar cost averaging, use the 4-year average dividend yield. You can use that on Seeking Alpha. Otherwise, just use, a dividend yield if you're lump sum investing. Okay, because we're projecting future returns. And then what you want to do is you want to, the yield on cost, you could look at that, like you could calculate it if, the difference between yield on cost is what your actual yield is versus what the forward yield is with the current price. And then what you want to do is you want to calculate what is the dividend compounding annual growth rate. So how quickly is it growing? Okay. And then you're going to get all of that here. You're going to put all of the dividend CAGRs for each of the companies, and you'll have and then you'll have the total for that. And then what you want to do is you want to calculate, and you can Google this, the formula. You want to calculate how to calculate the weighted average dividend yield of your portfolio based off of your target weighting, okay? And then you want to calculate the weighted average of your dividend growth. And then what you'll do is you'll see, okay, after you've done that, your weighted average will be, 4.5%, and then your dividend CAGR will be 6.5%, as an example. You can't really see that. Put that over here. This is the CAGR right here. And then what you'll do is then after you have this is where it gets exciting, okay? And then you say, okay, well, you need $50,000 per year. Well, then guys, it's just a math equation. You take $50,000, you divide it by your weighted average of 0.045%, so 4.5%. That means you need 1.1 million euros to reach your goal. Once your portfolio reaches $1.1 million based off of your target weighting, you have reached it. You're there. Okay? That's the beauty of this. It's all just math. Okay? And I should make an entire video on this process, but all of you who watch the Review My Pies, you're getting to see this. Like, I can make an entire video on this. But that's how you do it. Okay? And when I have people, connect with me and book time with me, I do I review people's portfolios. There's a link in the description below. I walk through this one-on-one with people, and this is how I help them understand this. But then what you can do is you can say, okay, I need $1.1 million. And then you can factor, okay, well, how long is it going to take me to get there? I'm investing $600 a month. I have X amount of money invested. Then it's just a matter of, okay, well, how long does it take you to get there? And then what you do is you take, okay, you got your $1.1 million. You're making $50,000 a year based off of your target allocation, your weighting, your portfolio. And then what you do is, okay, what could I reasonably assume going forward? Well, going forward, your dividend CAGR is reasonably around 6.5%. That means the next year, you're going to get $53,000. And then the year after that, 57,000. The year after that, 60,000. And you can use a dividend calculator like I've shared on my channel to calculate that. But that is how you do this. And that's the beauty of it. That is dividend investing. That's retiring off of your dividend portfolio. This right here is what you have to figure out what you want to have invested. And I can tell you right now, it makes it a hell of a lot easier if you have a core portfolio of dividend ETFs. And then the smaller percentages into these individual stocks. Okay, because just imagine that you had 10% allocated to 3M. You probably don't because you have a good handful of stocks, but just imagine if you did. Okay, and it's all about risk management. And so when you think about your portfolio in this way, that's how you get to the next step and how you level up your game when it comes to preparing to retire off of your dividend portfolio. So Arne, I hope that this helps. I hope that this was helpful for you, a way to look at this. I mean, I can't really speak to, I could tell you my opinions on every single one of these stocks. There's some pros and there's some cons. What I would encourage you to think about, don't think about the individual stocks. Think about this right here. How do you get, in a conservative way, how do you get this right here to match what you're trying to do? And remember how we said, right here, the $50,000 divided by 0.045, and you're like, Jake, $1.1 million is not reasonable in Germany. I can't get $1.1 million. Well, in that case, then what you're going to need is 5.5%. And what does 5.5% mean? Well, what you do is 500,000 divided by 0.055. Well, now you need $900,000, $200,000 less. So $200,000, that's how many years would it take you to generate $200,000? That means you could retire X amount of years earlier by increasing your dividend portfolio yield. But what's probably going to happen is you're probably going to sacrifice on the dividend growth. It's a lever. It's a give and take, right? So that's how you look at this. That's how you think about this. And if you want to sit down with me one-on-one, book some time with me, I'll walk you through this. I have spreadsheets that you can use as well. I don't sell spreadsheets or anything, guys. Like, there's plenty of YouTubers out there that do that. I don't do that. But if you want to get on the phone, I do it all through Google Meet. We can share our screen and you can see my beautiful face-ish. Yeah, you can see my beautiful face. We can chat and we can talk about it. So yeah, but that's how you can look at this. And I hope that it helps. So viele Grüße und yeah, bis bald. All right, the last portfolio is from Kevin. He writes, howdy, I'm 55 and I'd like to retire at around 65. I've recently gotten on the dividend train and all the dividends are reinvested. The following are in a 401k, rollover IRA, Roth IRA, HSA. The HSA account is limited to what I can invest in. Current HSA holdings are FLPSX, VAS, lots of X's and stuff. Okay, cool. And VTMGX. Okay, cool. I'm assuming these are broad-based, funds like S&P funds and all that good stuff. I was hoping to get information on what you thought about the current stock mixture. Also, I'm holding JEPI and JEPQ in a 401k, and I was wondering if that is a good or a bad, if it's good or bad as far as taxes go. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a 401k. Of course it is. The question is the investment good that for your time horizon? Taxes, it's great. Here's my portfolio is set up in percentage-wise. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. What else do you got down here? If you have any follow-up questions, please let me know. Thank you for your videos. Okay, well, cool. Well, howdy to you, Kevin. I appreciate you reaching out. In terms of, your time horizon, you know that you're going to retire after the age of 59 and a half. So maxing out all of your retirement accounts, your tax advantage accounts, is plan number one. Like that's priority number one. And it sounds like you got a good grasp on that. You're doing very well. When it comes to your HSA holdings, and this goes for a lot of people in their employer 401ks, a lot of employer 401ks for many small companies are kind of garbage. And so the best thing that I can recommend with that is go with the lowest expense ratio. Don't get into any of the small cap, mid cap, growth, dividend shenanigans when it comes to those. Go with a total market fund in your HSA. And then you could always, once you quit your job, you can always transfer your HSA to, for example, like a Fidelity. I have Fidelity with my HSA. It's free. That's why I recommend it. There's no cost. And then what you can do is you can invest into whatever you want into your account. So don't think about this as if it's like you have no other options. Invest into something simple, generic, with the intention in 10 years to transfer your account. And that goes for your 401k, by the way, right? So don't get too caught up on your HSA. Like, for example, when I was working, I had one investment. I had the total US stock market, and I think the S&P 500. Nothing dividend related. I can always do that later, okay? And I intend to do it later. So don't get all caught up on, oh, I have bad options at my 401k or my HSA. You're not going to keep them once you retire anyways. And if you, in most cases, you shouldn't, right? You transfer them to another brokerage or another account, okay? Really, really important. Don't get caught up on that piece. Okay, and really quick, when it comes to the JEPI and the JEPQ, I know that there's a lot of great videos on YouTube pumping cover call ETFs. There's a couple of them out there. I don't like to be mean and bash other ETFs, but like there's a lot of garbage out there. And I call it garbage because I call it what it is. There's a lot of bad information when it comes to YouTube because a lot of videos are speaking to the masses. And now I'm speaking to you or someone similar in your situation. If you have longer than a 5-year time horizon, these cover call ETFs are garbage. Okay? Do you understand that? Like there's a lot of misinformation out there. And once again, I'm just a humble nerd and a guy on the internet as well. So you don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research. But these cover call ETFs, the upside is limited. Research and understand what they truly are. They're made for income. If you have a 10-year time horizon, 10 years is an entire economic cycle. Economic cycles last on average 10 years. The stock market could go up over 300% in a 10-year time period, or it could go down. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but just understand the stock market historically goes up 70 or 80% of the time over a 10-year time period. And I mean, we could have a lost decade. I don't want to, I don't want to assume anything. I hate predicting things. I'm horrible at it. But just understand that the odds are against you over a 10-year time period if you're holding a cover call ETF, regardless if it's JEPI, JEPQ, or some of these others. You can always add them later. You know what I talked about with your HSAs, right? Go with a total market, as an example, go with a total US stock market ETF or fund, and then once you quit your job at 65, transfer it to a Fidelity or something else, something similar, and then buy JEPI in that account, right? And you've had, over the last 10 years, all that growth, and now you get to transfer over a much larger balance and get a much higher income by doing it that way, as an example, okay? So that's my 2 cents on that. All right, let's take a look at your pie here. I kind of have to squint my eyes, but it looks like your largest pie is SCHD. Nice. DJRO, nice. I love it. I love seeing this. I didn't see this until just now, and I wish I could give you a high five. This is beautiful. Your 45%, 46% is in the simple path to wealth. Kudos to you, man. That is awesome. All right, cool. So you got VCHI as well. You got PLD, great. VTMX, MGX. These are your other ones, TSM, AMD, Amazon, Berkshire. Okay, cool. JEPI, JEPQ. So it looks like you have just a small percentage in JEPI and JEPQ. Okay, so that's not too crazy. You got Meta, but you're pretty happy with Meta this year. Ultra Group, okay. Microsoft, NVIDIA. If you got 5% in NVIDIA and Meta, 10%, oh man, you've done very, very well. Okay, I like this. I like it. Over the next 10 years, things that you're going to want to consider, you're really going to want to reevaluate your strategy and rebalance, refocus your goals on a yearly basis. You have 10 years to go. Focusing on this like SHD and DGRO now is great. Treat it, and I've said this before in this video, treat it kind of like a target date fund where as you get closer to retirement, you're adjusting, your allocation. Maybe you lower the percentage to Meta, you lower the percentage to NVIDIA, you lower the percentage to DGRO, and you increase it to SHD. And, once you get a couple of years out to, retirement, then you start adding more to JEPI and JEPQ, and maybe to PLD, some of these REITs, Vici. And this is all in a tax-advantaged account. So this is all tax-free. Man, beautiful, beautiful. And, once you quit your job and retire, you can roll over and convert your 401ks, your IRAs into a Roth IRA, right? And you'll pay zero taxes for life. You won't have any RMDs once you are in your 70s versus like a traditional IRA. There's a lot of benefits to that. And so right now it's a matter of, getting things set up for tax efficiency. And this is really exciting. You're in a great spot. And what you may want to consider, you have quite a bit of, well, actually, no, you don't have quite a bit of individual stocks. You have a small handful, which I like. And I'm assuming a lot of these index funds, you're probably going to rebalance into something else later. Well, you could also consider, another high dividend ETF. I like VYM. VYM is a good one. I mean, I like it. You're probably going to want to have a strategy with NVIDIA and Meta, some of these growth ones. So yeah, Kevin, I think you're in a really, really great spot. I'd have a strategy for how you're going to convert and roll over your retirement accounts, what your strategy is going to be, year over year. What I would recommend you do is have a spreadsheet, kind of like what I was sharing with the previous portfolio, is have where you're at today and what your target will be in the future. And then as you allocate and invest new money each year, each month, you can kind of work towards your target allocation and kind of treat this like a target date fund. But yeah, this is very simple, straightforward. I like what you're doing. Keep it up. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sending over your portfolio. And thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope that the video was helpful. I hope that you learned something new. If you haven't seen it already, I wrote this article here this week for M1 for their blog, where I talk about how I built my dividend portfolio and became financially independent at the age of 37. I talk a little bit about my personal story, my struggle with investing, how, things that I had to struggle through, and how the FIRE movement really changed my life. And, it's a pretty interesting article. I wrote it from the heart, and it was not necessarily influenced by M1. The only part that was influenced by M1 was the dividend tracker and dividend drip features, but everything else came from the heart. And I think you might find it interesting if you follow my story and have been following the channel for a while. And yeah, I'd love to hear. I haven't gotten any responses on the article, so if you read it, let me know what you think of it. And yeah, with that, I will see everybody in next week's video. Thanks for watching.
Please subscribe. Please subscribe.
You know what? I think we're gonna be friends. Can everyone say hi to my friend? That's crazy. I just wanted to say thanks. I'm glad you came along, partner.